Today, looking at the new kids on the block, or rather the new old kids back on the block, if that makes any sense. Let's drink some whiskey. Welcome to Whiskey and Whiskey. I'm the Whiskey Chaser Brian, and if you don't know by now, I review Irish whiskey without giving it an actual score, so it's more of a typical Irish drinking session. Any excuse at all these days, really. Coming to you from the one and only Christy's bar here in the heart of Kilkenny, City of Ireland, showcasing the very best in Irish whiskey. On today's show, taking a look at a revived brand, which is generally the case of a lot of Irish whiskey lately. Taking a trip up the north to Belfast and the old Cromac distillery. This is McConnell's Irish Whisky. Before we get into the breakdown of the drinking, I just want to say a shout out and a thank you to the folks at McConnell's who have kindly sent me down this sample bottle free of charge so that I can give you my honest thoughts on their brand new release. First up, and which is pretty much a standard by now, let me give you a little bit of history on what's heralded as one of the greatest global brands of all time. In doing my research for this video today, I found it a touch difficult to find some of the history on McConnell's Cromac distillery, partly because at the time in 1776, it was part of brothers John and James McConnell's brewery located at 22 Corporation Street, near Belfast City Hall in the heart of the city. It's thought that the distillery opened as early as 1776, but there's very little documented evidence to back this up. There isn't any mention of the distillery in the 1802 and 1823 excise returns, and Alfred Barnard made no mention of it in his Whiskey Distilleries of the United Kingdom book in 1887. However, Cromac is listed in the unofficial Customs and Excise Almanac, Ham's Yearbook, between 1925 and 1930, when it was still listed as having 3 bonded warehouses. It is quite possible that because the distillery was initially linked to a brewery that Barnard overlooked it on his travels, or it is also quite possible that the distillery could have been deactivated during his visit to Belfast. Seemingly, it's been very difficult to trace the old distillery's location today, as much of where the distillery was previously located in Belfast has been demolished. As Cromac Distillery remains a bit of a head scratcher, established in the 1770s and remained until the 1930s, it would make it the longest surviving distillery in Belfast. Along the way, the brand, like others, has had its fair share of troubles over its 150 years of distilling. 2 fires broke out in the old distillery, one in 1907 in the mill, which destroyed over 50 tons of malt, and another in 1909, which yielded a total loss of 500,000 litres of whiskey. This was to be the largest fire that broke out in the history of the distillery. Now, obviously, the brand has been revived, and with that to follow shortly is a brand new distillery. It is my understanding that work is currently being done on this new distillery, though not confirmed, in the historic Crumlin Road Jail in Belfast. The Crumlin Road Jail is not far from the original distillery site on Cromac Street. The Crum is well known for housing political prisoners from the 1840s to 1996, before being converted into an iconic tourist attraction. Plans are currently underway to bring McConnell's back to the heart of Belfast with a brand new state-of-the-art distillery, visitor centre and tourist attraction. I have asked, this hasn't been confirmed, it is hush-hush. Still to this day, and if you're lucky, you can find some of the old original bottlings of McConnell's Irish Whisky in various different whiskey auctions. And generally speaking, they fetch a pretty hefty price tag. Okay then, I think I've covered a fair bit of the history with the brand there. That's what my research has turned up for me, and I'm sure if I missed something or even if I got something wrong, I'll be made very aware about it in the coming days. Sound. Okay then, well, there's nothing much left to do now but to get the whiskey in the glass and to see what it's all about. But before we move on to the drinking of the whiskey, if you liked any of that history lesson I just gave on the brand, I'd appreciate a little thumbs up, and of course, don't forget to subscribe. Let's drink some whiskey. Okay, we've got it in the glass. The whiskey itself is spelt with no E, which back in the 1700s was how whiskey was spelt in Ireland. It's a blend of single malt and grain whiskies that have been sourced from none other than Great Northern Distillery, aged for no less than 5 years, bottled at a very respectable 42% ABV, and coming in around the €35 to €40 mark. And reading from the press release, they use specially hand-picked top quality bourbon barrels to age and finish the whiskey. I do have to make a small comment on the bottle. I'm a sucker for really cool and really well designed bottles. You heard me going nuts for when Teeling Black Pits when I reviewed that one a while back. I'll leave a link above. I still think that rocks, but I have to say that the bottle design for the McConnell's is absolutely top class. I think they really nailed the concept here. When I look at this, I immediately get like old school Belfast. A number of times in the past I've been there, hopefully again soon enough, and for some reason this bottle just reminds me of the city of Belfast. The branding, the ripples in the bottom of the bottle, the cork stopper, even the brass label just really stand out for me as a quality design. Fair play. I really think that McConnell's nailed that part of the branding. Look, the bottle looks good. Now let's get into the whiskey, the most important part of it. I'm not sure if there was coloring used in this. It doesn't state it anywhere. Look, it doesn't really matter. There's a really nice deep golden hue to it. I suppose there's nothing less to do but give it a little nose and a little taste. Okay, so on the nose, as I said, this was a 5-year-old blended whiskey. So you're obviously, you're gonna get a touch of spirit, which I do get. Although it's masked quite well. What we have on top is a number of different layers. It's not overly complex. It's quite an elegant whiskey, easy to nose. I would say that there's a nice touch of vanilla in this. There's a nice touch of what I find as lemon citrus. Like, to me, it's kind of a lemony citrus nose to it. Has that vibrancy, that brightness to it. Again, I said a little spirity, but not overwhelming. A little bit of peppery spice on the nose, nothing crazy. And of course, you're gonna have that touch of oak from the bourbon barrels coming through as well. Quite nice, like I said, elegant, not overly complex, not underwhelming, not overwhelming, right where it should be for that. Actually, probably a little bit better than should be for that price range. Yeah, I quite like it actually. It's the lemon citrus notes for me that are really kind of biting a bit on this. That's giving me that lovely nose. All right, let's get it in the mouth. Sláinte. That's quite pleasant. I'm getting the vanilla notes. I'm getting a little bit of char from the cask. So that's coming across to me like a little bit smoky, but not like it's not peated, or it's just, I can get that char along with the vanilla. It's a little bit bitter. Still have the vanilla sweetness is definitely coming through. There's a nice bit of spice to it, nothing crazy. It's not overboard, but again, I'm definitely getting a little bit of that oakiness coming through. 5-year-old blended whiskey, you're gonna have that, I think. This is quite pleasant, quite easy to drink, quite easy to nose. Second time around, that char is becoming a little bit more prevalent, a little bit more noticeable. There's plenty of heat. Actually, there's a lot more heat in the second mouthful than there was in the first mouthful. Not overbearing, not in your face, not overdoing it by any means. Just kind of like, blending in nicely with the notes of vanilla and the citrus. There's a nice bit of hang time on the dram. Actually, to be honest with you, it's still kind of there in the back of the throat. It's not overly complicated, but I think that, it does exactly what it says on the tin. It's just right there. It's still, still hanging around. I can still get the heat, still get the vanilla sweetness, still get the oak. Yeah, look, thumbs up. I think it does, like I said, it does exactly what it says on the tin. And for the price point, I don't think you can go wrong on that. I think it's in or around where it should be. I'm gonna say that this has a particular market it's after. It's not overly aggressive and has quite a simple statement to make in terms of blended whiskey. As I said, it doesn't overdo or underdo anything really. It's simple, it's elegant, and it's priced right. On McConnell's website, which I'll link below, they have a few interesting cocktail variations that in theory look relatively easy to make, but again, I'm not really a cocktail guy. I'm getting a hint that they want this whiskey used in cocktails as well as drank neat. I'm a neat kind of guy, in case you haven't noticed, but I can see where this has its place in the cocktail world. All right, so there you have it. That's my thoughts on the newly released McConnell's Irish Whisky. If you get a chance, try it for yourself and let me know what you think. Whiskey tasting is entirely subjective, and just because I get certain notes on a whiskey doesn't mean you will. So if you have tried it, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts were. As I understand it, this is going to be heavily marketed for the US market. I'm not entirely sure if it's available over there just yet, but if it isn't right now, then very shortly it will be. Once again, I just want to thank the folks at McConnell's Irish Whisky for sending me down this bottle to give my honest thoughts on. I think I've done that. I think they, nailed an elegant blend there. So thank you for that. And I also want to say thanks to the lads at Christy's Bar for letting me come in and do my reviews here in their fantastic pub, which when it opens soon, hopefully we can organize some form of tasting night so you can try some of these whiskeys I get to review, which by the way, will mostly all be available here to purchase by the dram. All right, so that's all I got for you this week. Hopefully you enjoyed my thoughts on the McConnell's Irish Whisky. And just as a side thought, I think I might try to make a few cocktails in the future with this whiskey. I'm not a huge cocktail guy, but I'm sure I could throw an all video together and just see how bad I am at cocktail making. If anything, it might give you all something to laugh at, but I'll save that for another video. Until then, stay safe and I'll see you next time. Sláinte.